Okay, I'm going to draw a larger flat for you now. So here we have a rectangle that's 12 feet by 10'6" tall, representing a wall that our designer has drawn for us to construct. We're going to figure out how to frame it and cover it. I'm going to start with the frame plan. I'm sorry, never mind. I'm going to start with the cover plan. That's the thing to do, guys. In my navigation palette, I'm going to double click the cover class. So that makes me automatically draw things in this dashed line style that's kind of a thin line weight, and that'll differentiate well from the line weight and style of the frame plan, which we'll do next. I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. The reason we do the cover first is it shows us where all the cover seams are, and we need to be able to support those with framing. So we do cover first, and then we figure out how to support it. I'm going to just draw a rectangle of kind of a random size. I just snapped it to a corner and drew some random rectangle, and I'm going to resize it now in object info because it's quicker. 4 feet wide, 8 feet tall. Done. Now that I've got that one, I can just duplicate it and move it around. So I've done a little bit of thinking ahead to decide how I'm going to orient my cover sheets. I decided I'm going to do a row of vertical sheets down at the bottom of the flat and then fill in with horizontal pieces where I have to up at the top to get the rest of the height. Always good to spend a little time considering what's most efficient and what's easiest to draw and easiest to build. I think this will work pretty well. So, having decided this, I'm going to just Control D to duplicate, Command D if you're on a Mac, and I'm going to say Control or Command M to move it and say I want to go positive 4 feet in the X direction. There we go. And now I can do it again. Command D, Command M, Enter. It remembers the last distance and direction that I moved something in, so I don't even have to type in that 4 feet value the second time I do it. Really quick. Then I just have to fill in the top. So back to my rectangle tool, I'll snap to the top corner, then extend and diagonally snap to this intersection of these cover sheets here. Done. Without moving my cursor, I'll click again and snap to the other corner. There's all my cover sheets ready to go. One thing I like to do at this point is hold down Shift and hover and click on all of my rectangles, and then it's nice to just group them together. So the shortcut is Control or Command G for group, and it just turns them into one object that I can manipulate all as one piece, so it's easier to drag and drop it around. I still have snappable control points within this group, so all of those lines and intersections are still their own objects inside the group, and I can snap my cursor to them, so that's useful. And if I ever want to reverse course, I can just say Control or Command U to ungroup, and I'm back to having them be individual objects. I'm going to group them for now. And while I'm at it, since I've done that, I've got this one object now. I can just delete the designer's drawing. I don't need it anymore. Okay, so there's my cover plan, done. Next thing is frame plan. Best way to go about it typically is to draw it right on top of the cover plan so that you know where all the seams are that you need to support with cover material, and you get, you know, a visual indicator of whether or not you're doing a good job at that. I'm going to go into my cover class. Double click on frame. So now that's going to give me a thicker line weight, and it'll be a solid line rather than a dash, the way I've set it up in this template file. Just like your lab templates. I'm going to grab my double line tool to do the frame. And I'm going to start with, I like to do bottom control line mode. So the way this works is when I click at got this bottom left corner. I'm gonna snap my cursor and click and extend. Oh, hey, that's too wide. Let's fix that. So I need to go to separation. With my double line tool selected, in the separation field here, I'm gonna type in 3/4 of an inch so that I'm representing the edge of a piece of 1x. All right, now snap, extend, snap again, click, and I've got my rectangle representing the bottom rail, right? And now I can just continue going kind of clockwise around the drawing. I think it's a little easier because the stiles have to fit inside the rails. I like to do all the rails first. So I'll go up top and click on the right side, drag, snap, click. And then I can keep going. I'll click. So I'm snapping inside of the style of the rails, inside the rails. There we go. There's a zoomed in view. Snap and click, and there's my first style. I use my arrow keys to get over to the other side. Whoop. Again, click. And whoops. Snap and click. There's my other outside style. So I'll zoom out, and that's what we've got so far. And now I need to deal with the seams on the interior. So the way I like to do that is keep a strong vertical whenever I can. So I don't want to like have a style that is here and then there's a seam and then a piece across and then another style. That's not as strong as having this one style go all the way to the top as one strong piece of wood. It's easier to make things be straight and flat horizontally when we install them compared to making them stand up straight. So we need all the help we can get. We're going to use one strong spine of solid wood all the way up vertically in this flat. So I'm going to delete those, and here's how I would do it. Get my double line tool. You know what? I don't even have to. I'm going to get my selection tool. Just go back to the arrow. I'm going to click one of my styles because they're all the same. Zoom in a little. I'm going to Control D to duplicate. And then in this case, I'm just going to drag and drop it. If I zoom in a bunch, I can grab that. I want those crosshairs. There we go. I'm going to hold my click to drag it, and I'm going to put it right there, snapping to one side of that seam, right? And then I'm going to duplicate again. I'm going to use the move command next, Control M, and I'm going to say I want to move it minus 3/4 of an inch or 0.75, enter. That just moves this one over next to the first one. So now the seam in my cover material is running right down the center of those two styles. So I have good support on both sides of the seam to staple my cover material to. That's what I want. Then I have to deal with this other vertical seam over here. Guess what? It's exactly the same as this one. So I'm gonna, with my selection tool, click and drag to highlight that double style all at once, and then I will duplicate it and move it minus 48 inches or 4 feet, enter. And now that just winds up being dead centered on that other vertical seam. Done. Then we've got the horizontal seam to deal with. Well, here's the best way to do that in this case. I think it's to go back to my double line tool, but in this case, in separation, I'm gonna make it 3.5 inches, 3.5. So that's like a 1x4 that I have rotated on its face to support that seam with just one more drop into. And the other advantage of that is all I have to do is notch the thickness of a 1x4 out of these styles here and out of these styles here, and then that 1x4 can be one continuous piece all the way through. Oops. What I want to do is grab the center control line mode for my double line tool here. so that I can snap to the seam, click, and then it's going to center this board, this 1x4, right on that seam. There it is. Zoom out so you can see. So that's the other strategy for supporting an interior seam in a flat. Rather than doing double toggles, you use half the wood. By having a single piece of material just flipped on its face so that it's wide enough to staple both sides of that seam to still. And we just have to tell the carpenters using a call-out note, perhaps, topic of another video, that right here and right here, they need to notch those stiles to accommodate that 1x4 running right through them, right? Now, another way we can do that, aside from or in addition to a note, is to just do a hidden line. So let's do that. If I get my line tool, and I could just, if I'm lazy, just double click the cover class and use that dash. It's probably a little too big, but that's how I'm going to do it this time. So remember, a hidden line indicates that something is behind the object that we're actually seeing in front in the drawing. So if I click here and just insert some dashed lines connecting the lines representing these stiles. There we go. I could have just selected all those and moved them over 4 feet too if I wanted, but it's not much quicker in this case. So if I zoom out, there you go. So there's our hidden lines. Again, that's not the greatest dash. So if I wanted, I could highlight all those and go over to my attributes palette. And I need to expand it. I go to the line type and pick something else. Hang on, I need to make this bigger for myself. There we go, now we can see. If I pick like a shorter dash, what's it gonna be? Well, there we go. Let's do that one. That's a little clearer. Sort of. You get the point. You get the point. Okay. Hidden lines, done. So now I just have to do toggles. Back to my double line tool again. And I'm going to remember to change it back to a 3/4 inch separation since I'm doing on-edge construction again here. And then I just have to do some toggles. So with the double line tool in center mode still, I'm going to go down here. So I want toggles every 2 feet. With center line mode, here's how it works. I'm going to snap to the inside corner where I need to start a toggle, and then extend and click on the outside edge of my rail. Oh, I'm in the wrong class. Double click frame. That should fix it. Okay, now I'm going to extend all the way over here and snap to the inside corner on the other opposite side. Come on. Sometimes you have to really zoom in. You want that green line. It tells you you're aligning with that corner. Click. Okay, there's a toggle. So it's in the wrong place, but it's lined up such that I can now do this trick. I'll zoom out a little bit so you can see what's happening. If with that highlighted now, I say Control D to duplicate, and then Control M to move, I want to have a 0 in the X field. And then Y, I want to move it up 24 inches or 2 feet. And say Enter. And now that's 2 foot on center from the bottom edge of my rail, exactly where I want it. I added a second toggle there. I didn't need to duplicate that one. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm going to delete it. Here's how the rest of this goes, really quick. I just have to click, select that toggle, and do the same thing again. Control D, Control M. Remember, it knows that I'm moving things 2 feet lately, so I don't have to type it in again. Say Enter, Control D, Control M, Enter. And I could say, well, do I really need to move another one up? Here, I'll show you. Control D, Control M. I could do one here. That would be 2 feet on center. That would be following the rule, but it's ridiculous. It's 6 inches from the edge. So I'm just going to omit any toggles above this on face piece and call it a day. So I've got those. Now I can just select them all, duplicate them. I want to zoom in a little bit so that I can click and drag. If I hold Shift, that gives me this snapping line, so I'm perfectly horizontal. And just drop them right there. And that's done. Now, the way the measurements work in this flat, if I were to do that, Control D again, and try to drag the same toggles right to the middle, in this case, it works really well. Other times, you'll find that turns out they're too wide, and you just have to make a little adjustment. In this case, I'm done, and that's awesome. Otherwise, I could still do the duplicate and move thing of just select them afterwards and adjust their width in object info, and it's still quicker than trying to draw fresh new shapes all over again. Okay, zoom out. And that's a finished frame plan. Now my cover plan's under there somewhere, so I'm just going to, this is the monotonous part, I can't just click and drag because I'll select my cover plan too. If I'm lucky, I can like hover and select the cover rectangle, that group, but I can't, it's hard. So I'm just gonna click, holding Shift down to select all of my frame pieces. I can click and drag, and it's a little less finicky than having to line up the cursor just right. There. Guess what? I'm going to group these two because that makes things easier. Control G to group them. And now I just want to move these aside so I can see both plans cover and frame side by side. So Control M to move. I'm going to move it over like, I don't know, 13.5 feet. I like to have about 18 inches between plans. Oops, I did it wrong. Undo. Undo is a beautiful thing. I don't want that 13.5 feet in the Y. I want it in the X. 13.5 feet. Put a 0 in the Y. There we go. Hey, look, now I've got a cover plan and a frame plan side by side. It helps to align them side by side because now it's visually really clear, like that this on-face board is meant to support that seam. It just shows you, or shows the carpenters the relationship between the cover and the frame. And that's really helpful, and it also helps streamline dimensioning too. So now I could dimension this. I'll get my constrained linear dimension tool. And what do I need to do? Well, if I'm being really generous with dimensions, I could dimension like all of the outside dimensions. I would probably only do this once because we know that the cover plan and the frame plan are the same outside dimensions. And then I could do like, if I get my constrained chain mode, this allows me to insert one dimension, click, and then extend, and I'm doing the next one. When I'm done and I don't want to insert anymore, I double click. There, so that's a quick way to do 2 dimensions kind of in one. And then actually down here, what I really want to do is probably move my overall width up to the top, because down at the bottom, I want to use my chain mode again to show that each of these is a full sheet 4 feet wide, right? So here we go. Click extend, click, extend, now double click to finish it. There you go, done. Same idea for the frame plan over here. I'm going to skip the outside dimensions because I already gave them over on the cover plan. I'm going to live in my constrained chain mode kind of all the time here. So I'll zoom in and click. This is kind of redundant in a way because experience kind of know that the frame measurements should be aligned with the cover measurements, but we're going to do it anyway. It doesn't hurt. Snap, click, extend, and double click to finish. There we go. And now I'll run up my 2 foot on center measurements like this. I'm gonna zoom in, way in. Zooming in helps a lot, guys. I can get that midpoint snap now, which was a little bit hard when I was zoomed way out. Now I'll zoom out again and click. So like this is where having a wheel mouse is really useful for all that zooming. But I can also just use the arrow keys to scroll up and stay zoomed in too. That's what I'm doing here. Here's my on face piece, snap to the center of that. And next I'll have my final double click to finish it off at the top corner. If I zoom out, you can see what I have accomplished. All my dimensions, nice and tidy. Last thing I could do again is just like in that last flat I demoed for you, select all my dimensions and give them the same offset, and watch again what happens when I just select them all. Let's say 9 inches, oops, 9 inches. That's going to put some of them in the wrong place because they wanted a negative rather than positive value. So I'll just click, click, click those and change that to a -9 inches. And we're back where we should be. Nice and clean and tidy, just ready for some notes. That's it.